Hello and welcome back. I am Amber here with my good friend Tracy, and today we are going to be discussing the entire series of Tencent's Three Body Problem adaptation. There's a lot going on, 30 episodes. I don't know how long this is going to go today, but we'll see.
I was shocked at how many episodes there were for one season and how fast they came out.
It's not anything like what I'm used to with American series.
No, if anything, I mean, generally I feel like I'm not getting a long enough series for the story that's being told. And I feel as though could they have maybe condensed this down a little bit? Maybe. But did 30 episodes cover the book really, really, really well and then some? Yeah. I was really happy with this whole adaptation. I
The
rarely
whole
say that
journey.
something. Yes, I rarely think that something is better than the book or as good as the book, and I feel like this was as good as and an enhancement of the series. Like there were definitely things that I think you and I had talked about. Like I like more of the family stuff, like getting to see Professor Wong's family and not just getting like briefly introduced to them in like one chapter and then they don't show up at all for the rest of the book. And I'm like, but his family.
Mm-hmm.
And like they actually kind of like help him in his journey. And I like that. Like I just like it. It made it feel easier to connect to than at certain points in the book, I think. Like I liked it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's totally fair. I think with this series as a whole, it did at times feel like it was a bit too long, but
Mm-hmm.
I think had they have had they been able to know ahead of time what parts were going to get cut.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm sure that when they presented this as the entire series, they weren't sure, well, how many minutes of episode 10 is going to get cut down to a certain
Yeah.
amount of time. So maybe that had something to do with that, like making sure that there was enough content to fill.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
also, I'm sure with this being like such a large, hyped up series, especially for the Chinese market, they were
Mm-hmm.
probably like, okay, we're going to milk this. We're going to
Oh
give
yeah.
them as many episodes as we can, as many viewers as we can. And I
I love
think,
this tactic. I love
yes,
this.
like I'm fine with that. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, covering it for a YouTube channel is different than
Mm-hmm.
covering it just, oh, like I have 3 hours this weekend where I'm not doing anything, I can binge a couple
Mm-hmm.
episodes. But reviewing it, that made things tough because it was like, okay, I have to dedicate this much time every week doing notes,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that I know what's
Yeah.
going on. But as a viewer, like
Mm-hmm.
it's really refreshing.
Yeah. I know that, I mean, especially for our main podcast with Wheel of Time, we're always like, 8 episodes is not enough. And I feel like if they could at least just take this kind of an approach, like that, give them everything we can think of, milk it for all it's worth, why not?
Right? I'm
Why
I'm missing
not?
the days of television where we would have series that were
Mm-hmm.
20 episodes long. And I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that every series needs to be like that because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, but we've
No.
definitely fallen into, I want to say like Disney does it a lot, Amazon does it
Mm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon is
Mm-hmm.
notorious for 8 episode seasons, and it's hard as someone who likes to be entertained, is really into
Mm-hmm.
fantasy, sci-fi, dramas,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like I really want to get to know these characters. I want to know what drives them, not
Yeah.
just picking the most exciting moments and cramming it
Yes.
in to make
Yeah.
it where it almost gives you whiplash. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're going so hard, so fast, and it's like explosive moments, and then they have to reel it in and give you the
Mm-hmm.
character-driven moments, it's
Mm-hmm.
like whiplash. So
Mm-hmm.
in this way, I think it's easier to kind of like ride the wave of
Yeah.
like comfortability, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It felt more realistic.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like life isn't made up of those constant, like high point stress points. Like there are
yes.
lulls in between that give everyone like a needed rest, a chance to regroup and think about what's going on. And with like this push for high energy, big impact, little bit of focus on the story.
Yeah,
I'm not like everyone's like, "Oh, we just don't have a big enough budget for that." I'm like, "For what?
right.
For good writing?"
This is the exception because they're not dealing with this massive Hollywood budget, yet
Right.
CGI looked good.
Really good.
I would not criticize any of it because I
Mm-mm.
don't need everything to look like a billion-dollar production. Like,
No.
I'm okay with that. If the story is good, I
Mhm.
don't care. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, with this being sci-fi, there were some moments where I was a little bit worried. Like when we got to the end of the series and we're learning about the birth of the Sophon and
Mm.
how all of that's going to look, and
Mhm.
maybe the Trisolaran fleet, like, heading out to the stars. I was a
Mhm.
little bit like, I was trying to like reel myself in and not get too excited, thinking like, oh,
Mhm.
like it has to be really cool, like it has to look really spectacular. And I was honestly way more impressed, way more
Mhm.
surprised at how good it looked
Yeah.
considering the budget. And even if you
Mhm.
take the budget away, it still looked great. Like
Yeah.
it was just absolutely fine. There's nothing to criticize there for me.
Mhm. Yeah. I think one of the things that kind of helped with that too, and I mean maybe I really don't know if this would have made it more challenging or easier to show it the way that they did through the video game format.
Yeah.
Like so much of the stuff that like tells the story of Trisolaris is done through the game. And
Mm-hmm.
so you get game graphics instead of trying to make it look
Hyper
like it's
realistic.
real. Exactly. And so I think that gives it like a little bit of grace to be really imaginative
Yes.
and kind of like push it in a way that you wouldn't be able to if you were trying to make it look really real. And I thought that like the game was not one of my favorite moments in the books. Like it was okay, but it was kind of tedious in some ways. And I knew it was there to like push the story along and whatnot. But in the show, I was like, when am I getting back to the game? What's going on in the game? Like I wanted to see that next progression. I loved the use of time period and costumes that were
Mm-hmm.
done in the game period, like when you get to the point where he's meeting Einstein and he's got the
Yes.
fedora and I'm just like, looking good, man, looking good.
the in the books we don't have that. Like
Mm-mm.
it's not as layered, I guess. In the books it's like
Mm-hmm.
here's where we are, this is what happened, and it's not really we're not receiving a lot of details about the smaller things like
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
does this character wear, how are they presenting themselves, and then like we move into the part where like Da Vinci shows up and we've got this like he's almost cartoonish, like he's just so
Mm-hmm.
over the top and
Mm-hmm.
so absurd, and it is just so
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable because they're not taking themselves so serious. And in
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi, I mean, I think that is like one of the hallmarks of sci-fi where it's like everything has to be like, this is a different world, a different dimension.
Yeah.
There's aliens. Like
Yeah.
it's so stark and serious. But here, like in the game, they're allowing themselves to almost be self aware in that
Mm-hmm.
nature.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I'm trying. Oh, you talking about the Da Vinci part. I was really happy with the drop of the stake that they were potentially going to be like burning. I wanted to see that, the we might burn someone scene. I was curious what that was going to look
Mhm.
like. And I thought it was really cool. Like I did not expect like that like quick drop down and like the charred remains of someone like attached to it to like come down from the
Right.
ceiling. I was like, all right, that's cool. I like that.
It was clever too because we're not in this instance, like they weren't very graphic in this
Mm-mm.
show. Like
No.
obviously in the books, like I mean, people get whisked into tiny little pieces at the
Mm-hmm.
end on Judgment Day. And then, obviously people are burning on crosses, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to show it. Like you could see like a charred kind of form there, so
Yeah.
you know what had happened, but you didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
actually see someone burning, I
Yes.
guess. So
No,
like you
yeah.
can bring down the, I guess, age restriction a little bit in that
Mm-hmm.
manner, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I felt like the game gave just a really good opportunity to tell the story and do a lot of the world building sci-fi aspects that kind of just dragged for me a little in the books. Plus like the visualization that you get of what the ETO thinks the Trisolarans look like. That was wild.
I loved it. I loved
Yes.
the imagery for like the concept of the Trisolaran form. it
Yeah.
was it was really unexpected, I guess. It's almost like this like firefly like creature, which I think is
Mhm.
interesting that they went with something that was a little bit more insect like,
Mhm.
considering we had this reoccurring theme of humanity. They're just bugs.
Mhm.
They're a lesser life form. And then we
Yeah.
have this parallel moment with this lone Trisolaran who was like trying to warn Wang Miao and
Mm.
Dasha, or no, he was trying to, this lone Trisolaran was trying to warn Yao Wenjia. So when he's met by
Mhm.
Dasha and Wang Miao, you get this really emotional, humanistic feeling of this creature looking out to the universe and falling in love
Mhm.
with a planet that he's only seen, far, far away. And it's like, oh, that's such a
Yeah.
human emotion and reaction. And then we
Mhm.
get this like bug like appearance, and it's really endearing because it's so different. And it's
Mhm.
just, it was so emotional for me. It was one of the hardest parts of the entire series for me to watch because I was like, am I gonna cry right now? Like, this is a
Mhm.
CGI character. And I'm
Mhm.
like, he was just trying his
Aw.
best. He was just trying to help.
Yeah, and he connected with the things that so often connect us as humans as well. Like
Hmm.
when he's brought to trial and he's like, what about art and literature and creativity? Like we have completely
They're like,
pushed this out of our
mm,
society. And they're like, that's because that's weak and that fails. And we can't have a society that succeeds if we focus on those things instead of just survival,
yeah.
basically. So, I mean, I get that it's like an essential drive, but I think the question that gets asked by this poor outpost monitoring alien is
Hmm.
like, is that really living? Is that worth keeping alive? And I mean,
Yeah, well, they're kind of
does
like,
this
well,
question go over well?
yeah. They're like, well, maybe when we have a stable environment to live, then we'll
Yeah.
revisit that question. But it's
Yeah.
interesting getting into the psyche of something that's so different, so
Mhm.
inhuman. And I really liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah. It made it easier to kind of think about how they would go through the dehydration rehydration process to see what their
Mm,
structure may have looked like. Like when I think about human bodies dehydrating, rehydrating, I'm like, how do you rehydrate bone? and enamel, cartilage, things like that. Like, can we just be like flattened out like that? But then seeing this like potential, I was like, yeah, you look a little like a camping mat that could just be like
Just
deflated
roll
and
up.
rolled up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it made so much more sense. And I don't know, I just felt like how that was represented, the humanity, what he sees, the do not answer, like this plea, do
Yes.
not answer.
It's I have read so many things where someone is very clearly a villain, but it is so rare for me to find a villain that I'm so sympathetic towards. Like
Mm-hmm.
she just her life, man, that was that was rough
Mm-hmm.
and I, there's not a crime for what she did. Like this gets repeated
Mm-hmm.
over and over. Like it's not even it's above murder. It's above genocide. It is
Mm-hmm. Can you
unthinkable,
can you do
unimaginable.
can you be charged with global treason?
Yeah,
I
like
mean, that's what it feels like.
right,
That's what the trial is for the outpost guy who was like, do
right.
not answer.
Hmm.
Like, you've betrayed your entire
Hmm.
planet because you were mad.
And it's not just
Understandable.
yeah, and it's I mean, what's even funny to me, I think, is like they with Mike Evans, trans species, what is it? Pan species. I'll think of
Oh,
it
it.
later.
s-
Communism.
Oh, okay. I think it's species
Pan species.
egalitarianism.
In the show, they didn't name it the same thing that's in the books,
Oh, okay, okay.
but regardless, like I was just thinking like, okay, cool, Mike Evans. We've invited this hostile force on here. You don't think that nothing's going to happen to your birds or your bugs or
Mm-hmm.
your bees? Like everything's going to be fine?
Yeah.
What if they eat I don't know. Maybe they eat birds.
Coral reefs.
Yeah.
Something that's like endangered, you
Right.
know?
But it's interesting because you have so many different ideologies where they all kind of
Mm-hmm.
overlap a little bit. And then we
Mm-hmm.
get these big questions of like what's the worst thing that you could do and how is a way that you could present it where you're like, oh, like you still feel sorry for Wenxia, but you also feel sorry for this lone Trisolaran. So it's like there's really good and really bad on both sides. And it just so
Mm-hmm.
happened that like these two beacons connected and oh man, like it's the worst. It's the worst. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to you about it before where like so often in science fiction, I feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at things maybe in two ways where it could be like very idealistic, like this could be our
Mm-hmm.
future, or it's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
uh-oh, that could be our future, where it's
Mm-hmm.
you can be a little bit more positive or negative, and a lot of the times too that question is really romanticized, like what else is
Mm-hmm.
out there, we should
Mm-hmm.
look amongst the stars and see what's out
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Mm-hmm.
after reading the series I'm like, no, don't send Beethoven out into space, don't nothing, turn off the lights, no one is home. That's how we're dealing with this from now on. And I think
Uh,
that's the thing that made me fall in love with this first book, where I was just like,
yeah. Yeah. Like, it's the idea of what's possible that like kind of freaks everyone out. And I mean, I get it. I get it. But again, like it has the possibility of being like a global wave of fear
yeah,
finding out what's happened, and that is potentially going to shut down an entire planet. Like, that's scary in and of itself.
yeah, I mean, it's so ingenious how they decided to come up with the Sophons as like this is the
Right.
perfect spy, right? It's like as soon as they make one and two, like Sophon one and two, then they have it's like walkie-talkies, you know, they have constant
Mm-hmm.
they have constant contact.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they can manipulate everything around them. So people are thinking that they're
Mm-hmm.
witnessing miracles, and they're also being scared out of their minds because of the things that they're seeing, where they're like, oh, okay, like science doesn't exist anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
what's the meaning of life if you're a scientist and there's no science? And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so scary,
Yeah.
chilling.
Yes. And the fact that they're like the Trisolarans are doing this to create that chaos. Like it just took this little teeny tiny bit of something and it's throwing off so
Everything.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing like the way that they talked about it with the particle accelerator and how
Mm-hmm.
the Sophon is there to disrupt and give false data.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, and then when Yang Dong, is that right? When Jia's daughter,
Yeah.
do I have her? Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When she commits suicide and her note is like physics doesn't exist and has never existed. Like, yikes. Yikes.
Right? Right? Ugh. There's there's something about this series that leans into horror, but not in like the traditional like ghouls and ghosts, but it's more of like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Let's explore that.
Yeah, it's very psychological. And in some
Yes.
ways, I feel as though when the Trisolarans sent out that message, it's like, you are bugs, like mental warfare from light years away. Huh.
Yeah.
How about that? That's wow.
I mean,
Wow.
if I was witnessing things that I was like this isn't possible, like
Mm-hmm.
being like from a Western background and you think of gods and Christianity, and
Mm-hmm.
these are unexplained events that people could only look to religion for an answer. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're not a religious person and you're a scientist and you see something like that happening, it's like, where do you go? What do you turn
Yeah.
to?
Mm-hmm. Which is why there were like just that rash of suicides like at the
Right.
start of the story. Like you just have these scientists who have based their lives on these things and whoops.
Whoops.
That sucks.
Mm.
But I do like the background that you have on here. Like I wanted to tell you this before, and you were like, "No, save it," which was smart. Um, I think they did such a good job of
Episode
using.
30, last scene.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, really across the entire season, I
Mm-hmm.
think they did this really well using good camera angles, the right music,
Mm-hmm.
and um something else to make nerds look cool, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, why is this moment with Dasha and uh Wong and whoever that other guy is? They're
Dingy.
just
Yeah.
pouring a beer out. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing. But they like amp up the music and they do like this slow spin around them from a lower angle. And I'm like, oh, okay, you guys. I feel like you're like defenders of the universe. Like, I have
Yeah.
hope.
There's
Yeah.
so much in that moment. I mean, I obviously like Dasha, huge fangirl right here. Like,
Love him. Love
love this
him.
man. But at the same time, like, he's everything cool,
Hmm.
but like not in this like macho, traditionally macho way.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
he's a protector and a
Mm-hmm.
guardian, and he's also like babysitting little kids.
And a jokester.
Right? Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just him like taking the mop away from Bing Bing, and he's like, "You do the hard work. Like I'll just do this."
You
And
are
it's
never allowed to pick up this mop again. Ever.
right?
Ever.
And he's like all of these, I want to say, like he's this image of like very, I don't know, like tender masculinity. And I like
Mm-hmm.
it a lot.
Me
And I feel
too.
like as an American, we do not get these characters as often as I would like to see.
Nope.
And that also like carries over into the relationship between he and Wang Miao because again, we do not typically get these relationships between men
Ah,
very
so good.
often. And it's everything. It's
It's
everything.
so
It's so
good. The part where Wing Miao is outside, like the ambulance where Dasha is. Yes. And he's like, he calls him and he's like, "Are you okay?"
Yes.
And Dasha is like, just Mr. Jokester is totally fine. And Wang Miao is like, he's scared for his friend. And then he
Yeah.
drives away. Wang Miao is just sitting there like, it was like, that was
Yeah.
my big cry moment of
When
the season.
when Ding Yi and Wang Miao are having their end of the world party
Yes,
and Dasha
yes.
shows up and they're like, "Oh, you're here." And they like hug and I'm like, they're just so cute. I love them so much. And
And then he hops up on the pool table and
yes.
starts dancing, and the other two guys are just like wrecking the place.
They're just
So good.
they're that cool. They're just so
Mm-hmm.
cool. And I don't know. I maybe it's just refreshing or like, a light in my head goes off and I was like, you know what? I don't see enough of that in
Mm-mm.
television. And so maybe I'm just kind of like grabbing hold of it and really, really
No,
finding
I'm
it an
I'm with
interesting
you. Mm-hmm.
perspective. It's
Yeah,
just good.
it's again that thing that goes back to creating more character connection inside the show versus inside the book. Like we
Yeah.
definitely don't get as many interactions of this level with Wang Miao and Dasha, and then for these friendships to come up that you don't necessarily expect
Yeah.
kind of from the beginning, and Bing Bing just being like the best, totally worthy of being referred to as 10 people. Holy
Mm-hmm.
moly, so
Yes.
impressive.
Right?
I second favorite character in
I
the
love
show.
Bing Bing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was
First Dasha, of course, but
this brings me to like one of my disappointments.
ooh, okay.
I feel like she could have been utilized a little bit more, or at least been in more shots, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like a very minor criticism because I just
Yeah.
really like her. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a story where we do have a lot of like one of our main characters is a woman, but
Mm-hmm.
she's a villain. And then with Shen
Mm-hmm.
Yufei, she's also a villain
Mm-hmm.
ish.
Ish, yeah.
So, like, it would have been nice to kind of have a little bit more interaction with female characters here and there, like Battle Command Center, like, not one
Mm-hmm.
woman.
That's
Which
true. That's
I
true. I was just thinking about that.
I think there was one in the room at one time, and they were mostly like, it was like a throwaway line, like, how are you going to do
Yeah.
that or something?
Yeah, one. Just
hmm
one when it comes to determining the fate of the planet. That makes sense. Okay, so when they're having the conference and like all the shit goes down, there's this flash of a moment where Bing Bing like puts her body in front of Wang
Okay.
Miao's like so fast, like you barely even see it, but it was like, yeah,
She was like
yeah,
ushering him out and using herself like as a barrier between him
yeah,
and the chaos. And I'm like,
yeah.
Bing Bing, you're so cool.
I was like, I thought that they did such a good job with her, And like when she comes in to tell Dasha that he has like the
radiation.
Right? And he's like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you crying about this?" And she's like, I'm like, "Me too. Me
Yeah.
too."
All of the actors are so good in this show.
So good.
I mean, there's a couple actors where they almost have more of a comedic role almost, where they're not just like this stern faced, like emotionless, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared. And I think it's nice they're allowing people to feel more genuine because
Mm-hmm.
humans are weird. Like
You're
we're not
weird.
one emotion, you know?
Mm-mm.
So
Ever.
it's nice to kind of
Mm-hmm.
see the different emotions and different feelings, and
Mm-hmm.
there's the time to do that in this series.
Yeah. I think that it just gave us a lot of really amazing moments for character development. I loved that. I loved that. Like I'm a big fan of a good story.
Who
So
isn't?
bizarre. I know, right? It's like that's what humans have been doing for millennia, is entertaining each other with good stories. And like I just felt like this one was pulled together so well. I have one disappointment.
Tell me,
And
that's what I was going to ask you next. Like, if what was there that you weren't really feeling?
it was just one little thing where Shen Yufei is in the game for the last time,
Mhm.
and she's talking with Wang Miao, and she says something like, "You're the chosen one." And I was like, I don't want there to be a chosen one. Like, I don't feel as though that's like
Mm.
I don't like too often I feel like that's what happens. Is like a story is given a chosen one, and that person gets like weird plot armor, and you have different expectations of them, and I don't think that that was ever the intention for his character, and maybe that's just how Shen Yufei chose to see him in that moment where she feels really, really desperate. But I was just like,
That that also could have been something with the translation that made it hard to really get
mm,
what they were, like the deeper meaning behind it,
mm-hmm,
because I assumed it wasn't like he's like some prophetic figure or something, like you've
mm-hmm,
been chosen to be the one, welcome, you know.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I had assumed it's because he's everything that the Trisolarans are scared of with
mm,
his flying blade and his
mm,
technology that he's working on. That's why he was sought out in the first place, because they were trying to
mm-hmm,
scare him into quitting his studies.
mm-hmm,
So, like, if they could bring him over to the side of the Trisolarans and get him to be sympathetic and just stop doing his research, like, it's a
mm-hmm,
win-win for everybody. They get this really smart guy on their side. He quits. He makes
mm-hmm,
science even less of a threat for the
mm-hmm,
Trisolaran. So, like,
mm-hmm.
maybe he was just singled out. Like, you've been chosen
Mm.
because we need you. You're important to us. Like a job interview, and not like
Yeah. Okay, okay. Not like you're the
fantasy
chosen
chosen one
one.
trope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Because like I was like,
But
but
I found
I
that
think that's
wording
probably mm-hmm.
a little
Yeah.
strange.
I loved the reference to the space elevator and how Wang Miao's like what he's researching, what he's working on
Mhm.
has every possibility of creating this space elevator that I've been waiting for a very long time. Nerds, come on. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Um
I thought it looked really cool too.
yes, I loved the visualization for it. Like I just that was another thing was like so many things. I'm a visual person.
Hmm.
Like a lot of times in the book I would kind of almost like zone out and just skim through it because I was like, blah, blah, science, like, because apparently I'm that person. But in the show, almost anything that needed to be explained that was science-y, for lack of a better word, had these really great images that went along with it to kind of pull people like me into understanding these much larger concepts that are, to me, confusing. And so I loved seeing I want to say when the one guy was working on the actual three body problem, and he was talking about how, like, first I saw
the
like
spheres.
and he's like kind of floating in this darkness and these things are happening around him. And I was like, that is what it feels like to think, isn't it? You know, like, I thought that was so well done. Like, there were just really solid efforts to make sure that your audience didn't feel lost.
Right.
Because I mean, that would turn me off, you know, if like I got to a point where I was like, well, I don't really understand what's going on anyway, so I don't really want to watch it anymore. But each time it was a new concept, it was a visualization. I was like, this is cool.
Right.
This is really cool.
It makes things a lot easier if you're a visual learner. I mean, like reading the books, you can kind of get the gist of things, but if you see it, it's something totally different.
Yeah, everything about it, like I mean, some things I felt like I could kind of understand and were totally fine, but like other things, just seeing the ship get sliced apart.
It was so cool. It was so cool. My favorite.
That was so great.
My favorite moment is, you know, like the big, like beefy mercenary guy.
Yeah.
He's in the background and you see the life, the life preserver. What are those called? Where you throw the lifesavers.
Life preserver. Yeah.
In the background, and you see just the half of them like drop. And he's kind of like looking like, what the? Yeah. And then it cuts away where you can just kind of like see the shadow of him falling. And I'm like, that's totally fine. Like, I'm not someone that's turned off by some gore. But in the way that they've done this, like, you know exactly what's happening to these people. And you've got instances where they're like clawing their way across the deck, and it's like,
It's like gore light.
It is, but it was still good.
It was, and because we had like that one story from the Marine about his son and this mercenary, I was like, oh, I want to make sure he's dead. Is he dead? And they were like, oh, he's dead. He is dead.
That was one of the only storylines where I was like, wait, what? This one guy, like, he has a vendetta against this guy because of his kid, and he just so happens to be on the boat. Okay, whatever. But I think it was because this was the guy that they were going to show, like, that they were going to give the most attention to his death, because you have to show, like, one, I don't know, you have to at least focus in on someone, so it's not just, like, shadows. So they're like, if we're going to kill somebody, it has to be the worst of the worst, and make him the big baddie from the ship. But that was what I was, that's kind of how I saw it, because I had the same reaction where I was like, did we need this? And then
like, why are they all criminals, murderers, and everything on the ship? Why are they those people? I don't get it. Like, I guess it was supposed to make someone feel better about people dying, I guess. Maybe Wang Miao needed to feel better. Needed to feel better. But
someone actually left that in the comment section of my last video. It was like him kind of like there-thering Wang Miao, who was like, death, I don't like death, I don't like this. And he's like, no, don't worry, they're all bad. There's not one single innocent person on this ship. Everyone who responded to the Craigslist ad, murderers. Totally fine.
So I see on your application you like killing people. Cool, hired. Hired.
Can you swab the deck? All right, you're
Yeah,
in.
that you can kill people and swab the deck.
Yeah.
Perfect. Even better. I love this. Yeah, I feel like it was just to kind of like amp up the emotional connection to what happens as the boat comes through. I mean, Mike Evans dies. That's not bad.
I love that he dies doing something he loves, sketching
Birds.
birds. Oh, this show, I loved
Just
it.
hanging out with my gang of murderers.
Yeah.
Writing about birds with my
Yeah.
glue stick and my cutouts. What? You're scrapbooking? You're scrapbooking. All right.
Loved it. I loved it. Loved it.
I'm not complaining. I just thought it was like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. Like, all right. But yeah, like overall, I would say the scene looked so much like that cutting the ship apart scene looked so much like I thought it would. And it was really cool to see like the breakdown of it in the room when they were talking about it. And Dasha's like, so we're just going to talk bullshit, right? And they're like, we can't do this thing and we can't do this thing and we can't do that thing. And again, visualizations for everything and why they can't do it.
It was awesome.
Loved it.
It was
Loved
awesome.
it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then for them to do like the digital, like computerized
visualization
model
of what it would look like when they get
sliced.
Yeah, sliced and diced.
Yeah. I thought it was so well done. I thought it took out a lot of like the mystery behind how it would look to like actually just see it like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, there was a lot that was really cool about this show. I told a lot of people that I was talking like a lot. I mean like 5 or 6 because I'm not that social. But
that's one of the things that upsets me so much is like I know so many people who are into sci-fi, but they don't know that this show even exists. So it's probably going to take Netflix's version to come out for people to be like, oh, like that's a thing. We'll watch that. But I don't know. Like it is going to be very, very interesting to see how both hold up and what one. Obviously, I don't think the Netflix one can be as true to the books because it's probably only going to be 10 episodes.
Right.
So.
Yeah. They obviously can't give it enough time. I don't get it. I don't get it.
But for the Netflix one, there's obviously actors in it that I know and I really like. Liam Cunningham is amazing in everything he does. He's Davos from Game of Thrones. And like he'll be great no matter what. It even has Samwell Tarly in it. So like I know some of the characters. I don't think that there are going to be bad actors or anything. But how can you do a book adaptation that is so packed full of science and philosophy and condense it like that? And I think that's the one thing where I'm like, there's that question mark of how are they going to do that? It might be really exciting and really fun, though. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but I bet there's going to be a lot that's going to be cut and different that this might surprise you, but I'm not holding out a lot of hope for the Netflix series. Partially just because of the way that Netflix seems to like create and then cut, and that makes me really nervous. And there seems to be like this focus on just making it and making it cool, but not making it good. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel
Are
like
you kind of talking more about like the spectacle of it all? Or
yes. Yeah. Like I feel as though there were so many things in the Tencent adaptation that Netflix would just chop immediately. Like almost all of Yewenja's backstory, the way that they did it, the way that it was woven, like almost all the way through the entire season, I don't see them doing that. I see that being seen as like
one
almost too slow.
episode
Yeah,
background.
like condense it hard. And
Mhm.
but then you're missing out on like this emotional journey that she goes on that does take time, that we only get bits and pieces of. So we're always like, yeah, but what next? Like, it pulls me along, even though it's like an undercurrent of the story.
Mhm.
And so because it is that undercurrent, I can see it being chopped. Or they make her history more about the horror of the Chinese Cultural Revolution and what happened to her father than about
Journey.
her journey after that happens. Which that's a very Western approach to a story.
I
Is
would I
to
would agree. I would agree.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Like I don't mind gore. I like gore. I like a good horror anthology. I'm that
Yeah,
person.
maybe Netflix will give us the whole chop of the Judgment Day even more
Yeah,
absolutely like over the top.
I can
I
see that easy.
I wouldn't mind watching that.
No. I mean, if they've got the funding for it, use it. Make it spectacular. But I really just like
Rosamund Pike is attached to the Netflix version.
really.
Hmm. I don't
Well,
I don't think she's acting in it, but
she's
she's
attached to it.
hmm
Interesting. Oh,
hmm
interesting. Is she like a producer or
I don't remember. I think it has something to do with the production company though.
okay. I can totally see her being the kind of person who thinks that this series is really cool. You
Right?
know?
Right?
Like, of course, you would want to do something attached to this. And hopefully it's just,
And too, everyone's trying to find like I hate saying this, but like the
mm-hmm,
next big thing after Game of Thrones. And
mm-hmm.
like it would make sense that they decided to take Dave and Dan from Game of Thrones and be like, okay, work your magic
Here,
again,
make
or
something.
right.
Yeah.
But I I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I'm almost more excited to see it so that I can compare the two.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah.
I feel like I'm excited to see what the story will be like because now at
Mm-hmm.
this point, read the book, watched one adaptation, can watch another one. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they'll switch things up a little bit so it feels different. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'll watch it. I'm still gonna watch it. Like, I won't be able to not watch it. I love
Right.
seeing like things like this. Like, how did this person do this thing differently from that person? So I'm still going to watch it. Do I think it's gonna be as thorough and authentic as this one has felt? I don't know. I just don't know. And I mean, maybe I'm losing hope in like television production because like Netflix did 1899 and I thought it was really, really good. And there's not going to ever be another season. And I am so sad. I'm sad. And I feel like
it's
that's just like,
it's
go
hard to
ahead. I'm
feel
sorry.
invested. It's hard to feel
Yeah.
invested with that fear looming.
Yeah. And I mean, there was even something this week that was talking about, I can't remember which movie production company it is, but I think Lord of the Rings is getting a reboot movie wise.
Mhm.
And so the question now is, does Amazon Prime continue on with Rings of Power for another season if there's going to be like this rival coming out? And so it's just like, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't care if Rings of Power got a second season. But it's just it's just the way that it's done so
Mhm.
often where I'm like, well, yeah, I want to watch this. I want to love this. I want to get excited for the next step of it. And then it's like, no. And I miss regular television where
Right.
it's not a guaranteed thing that you're going to lose a show that you're interested in. I mean, shows get canceled, of course, but I mean, sometimes they get at least 2 seasons. I feel like you need at least 2 seasons sometimes. So, I don't know. I think this one was done really well. I kind of wish American television was a bit more like this.
Right? Like
More
it feels like
invested in
it's
the
going
story.
back to the roots of cable television where we'd have longer seasons and
Mm-hmm.
it didn't feel so overly theatrical,
Yeah.
maybe.
You know what? That's a good point because it did feel like a TV series and not a mini movie. And I
Yeah.
feel like that kind of is almost the direction of so many like TV series. I don't even know if they can be referred to as TV series anymore when they come out on a
It's like a
streaming service.
6 hour movie.
Yeah, yeah, and you just get little chunks of it. And I mean, okay, but I like TV, you know?
I will say that reminds me the way that the episodes are done, like start to finish, feels like a cohesive, like beginning
Mm,
point, end point. Like you're not,
mm-hmm.
there's obviously multiple storylines going on without the entire series, but it's not jumping
Mm-hmm.
around too much and it's not
Yeah.
lingering for too long. And every episode ends on a part that feels like a natural place to end it. Whereas
Yeah.
it's almost like a little bit of a like it's like a to be continued, but it's not some of these tropey like who killed
Yeah.
this guy? Find out next week,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like not cliffhanger every single time. You know, more like
Conclusion.
yeah. And oh, more's coming. Awesome.
Hmm.
You know? Like it's not necessarily that you're, "Oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens next because I'm left with this huge mystery." It's more like, "I can't wait to see what happens next because I want the next piece of this
Right.
story."
Right.
Um I loved the changing intros.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought that was really fun. I
The
was not
soundtrack
really
changing too.
ah music for this show was really good. Like that was another thing that I just thought they did really well. The music was good. Like getting a glimpse of like cultural things and like mood. So often the mood, I mean, I know that's what music's there for, but it doesn't necessarily mean it always gets done well. And I felt like music was
Right.
done really well. Anytime that music involved Dasha dancing, for it.
10
Not enough of
out
that.
of 10.
Yes, yes.
I like too that the music didn't feel like they went with the exact same thing throughout the whole series, like
Yeah.
orchestra music or like the
Mm-hmm.
very stereotypical kind of like synthy sci-fi music. Like
Yeah.
towards the end when we've got the operation in the Panama Canal happening, like it's like very,
It's heavy
very
metal.
seriously like playing rock, like 80s rock, and I'm like this, and it just something inside of me, like it felt so nostalgic for some reason. Like it felt like I was
Mm-hmm.
watching an action movie from the early 90s with my dad, and we've got
Yeah.
these guys with like the paint on and they've got their guns and they're running, and it's like it just, I don't know, like it just hit so many different feels for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that goes back to them not taking the story so seriously, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
fun and cool without trying too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Music was well done. And sound effects.
I liked the sound
Because
effects too.
yeah, like I have no idea if a particle accelerator actually makes a noise or not. Like the inside chamber part of it that we don't really get to see. But in the show, like the little like pew pew sounds, it doesn't really sound like that. But you know what I
It's
mean? Like
it's
it
nostalgic.
hit
It's
right.
nostalgic. It feels
Yeah.
like you're watching Star Trek or something, and they're like,
Mm.
like Captain, you're at
Captain
the deck,
Picard.
and yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just cool. I had seen online some people being like, "Oh my God, the sound effects, like just so lame, like so cheesy." And I'm like, "But you have to understand that I don't think that they're doing that to be like, oh, like we seriously think that this, like this is an artistic expression of blah blah. It's like, no, like it is sci-fi and they're just making it fun. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
So
I
sorry,
agree with
people
you.
who didn't like it.
Yeah. I mean, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
But that's
I'm
okay.
right.
Yeah. Exactly. You're wrong about this. That's okay. That's okay. We can all still get along. You're
Yeah.
just wrong. It's fine. Yeah. I think that the end moment, like you've got the picture behind you, is the weirdest way to find hope at the end of a series, where it's like, we're going to go out to a field of bugs, massive amounts of bugs. I'm going to show you how, since time immemorial, we've been trying to get rid of them. We have not been able to. So just think about that, you smart scientists.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh, I loved
Thanks.
it. I loved
It was so good. Yeah. I appreciated that so much. The visualization of it was, again, like, sometimes book to TV, not so good. This one,
The set locations and the set design.
yes. Red Coast Base was so fun.
Good.
I was just like, wow, I feel like I'm there. Like,
even on the, like, every spot that they were in, I liked. Like, when they were on the train in real life, not in the game, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I've never been on a Chinese train before. Like, this is cool. This is fun.
Yeah.
And then the particle accelerator, like, that was an actual particle accelerator. They didn't build that set. They used a real place.
Nice.
This field for the last scene, I mean, just it's beautiful. Like, the colors, the sun coming through, the blue sky, and then, like, the grain, like, waving in the wind. And it's just so pretty. Like, it was, you can tell there was a lot of thought behind it. And whoever decided and made these choices, it felt like they loved what they were doing. Like, it felt like they really put themselves into it to get that shot. And
I agree.
It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they did a good job with the actor for young and old, Yo and Gia.
Did they not seem like the same person? Like,
yes.
It was almost uncanny. I was like,
yes.
Oh yeah, that's the same person.
I was like, have they done, like, some sort of, like, amazing makeup job? Like, even the way that they walked and moved, like, I was like, it's the same person. It's the same person. Is that not the same person? And they did such a good job with that. They did such a good job with that.
Both actresses were really, really good. I loved the scene with young Yo and Tia speaking English to Mike Evans. My heart, I was just like, she's the cutest person ever. Like, I love her so much. And then she pushes the button. I'm like, no.
Why? Why? Sad. Yeah, I was really impressed with that.
I really want to know from people who haven't read the books, like, what the most impactful part of the story was for them, because obviously, like, we're not coming to this purely from the television aspect.
Right.
But I have heard from a few people that are watching, like, loved the relationship between Dasha and Wang Miao. And I mean, obviously, because...
Right.
Of course.
It's good. Yeah.
But it's really cool to think that this show is out there and it's something for sci-fi people. I just hope that people share this and tell everyone who likes sci-fi, like, go watch this, because I don't know if a show like this is going to come around twice. They've already started discussing what they're doing for season 2. And I mean, even... Okay, so since you haven't read the next book, I will be very spoiler-free with this. But the last scene, it's the guy standing there and he has a little pin on his lapel. he's like our main character for next season. And he is like one of the coolest characters I feel like I've ever came across, because he goes on a journey. I'll leave it at that.
I love a good journey. I love a good journey.
It's a big one. It's a big journey. But second book, it makes season 1, book 1 feel like the prologue. Like this was just like that little like, okay, like here's this, and then like you step off into the unknown where things just get wild. And I'm really excited to see it. I'm really excited if they get a bigger budget. I think they deserve it. I've said that before. I'll say it again.
It's worth saying again.
Yeah.
I would love for it to get like just, I mean, considering not a large budget, I still think they did a really good job. So in some ways, I'm like, I hope you get more money. And other ways, I'm like, but you've been so creative. So I feel like even if you don't, it's probably going to still be pretty incredible. But I also have not read the second book, so I don't really know what all is necessary for that book to look good on the screen. Oh, you're waving your finger at me.
Yes, Tracy.
So does this mean I add this book to like my reading cycle? The second book?
Yeah.
I'm ready for it. I've been waiting.
Give yourself as much time as you need. I just think that the stakes are much higher, and it will be much harder, I think, to do without a little bit more
money.
Monies. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure I have all 3 of the books in my book app that I use. So I should be able to pick it up next week, I would assume.
Yeah. Maybe we can read it together. I'm due for a reread of it at some point anyways. I mean, I reread Three Body Problem before the series came out, this one, because I was like, there's a lot that I probably forget. And then like once the series started, I was like, oh my God, like it's the exact same thing. I would have been fine without reading it.
It's wildly accurate. It
would have been fine.
So close. Yeah. I read it. Well, I think I finished the book shortly before.
Like weeks.
Yeah, like it wasn't very long before the Tencent one came out. So it was still pretty fresh in my head. And I think that made it really nice to like have that like kind of back-to-back experience. I loved that. Yeah. But I'm definitely down for reading the next book.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, maybe we should watch The Wandering Earth 1 and 2 at some point.
Oh, what's that?
It's one of his other stories, but that's been created into movies.
Okay.
I've seen the first one. I haven't watched the second one yet, but I've heard good things. You want to see more of that space elevator, don't you?
I do. I've been waiting for that for so long. Even if I can just see it in TV form, I think I would feel better.
Okay. So we will be back with more Three Body Universe, The Remembrance of Earth Past trilogy stuff in the future. I think Tracy's probably going to start book 2, Dark Forest, soon. I'm really excited for that. I'm probably going to reread it as well. And maybe we will do some Dark Forest stuff because it's so good. It's so good.
I'm always down for talking books.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say also thank you to people that have been coming back to watch these videos, because honestly, like it's been so wholesome. Like the people in the comment section are seriously so nice and so great, and it's people that like really understand and care about the story. So you guys are just really cool and awesome.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice.
We will be back with more. So we will see you then, and take care.